Well, hello again, family and friends. Last week on this video series, I told you about the staff that I worked with in Singapore in the mid-1980s. A very highlighted time of our life, those 3 years we spent in that very amazing city. And in 1986, just as the summer was beginning, we moved home to Canada. Our son Tim was starting at university at Trinity Western, and the girls were in high school, Tanya and Melinda just finishing her last year of elementary school. They had not lived in Canada all their life, except as babies, and were, of course, visiting from time to time when we had our home leaves. So it was time to move home and have the family settled in Canada. And at the same time, Open Doors had asked me to come home and start what would be a truly Canadian office for Open Doors. Until that time, the office was primarily run out of California, although the receipting of Canadian donations, which had, of course, to be done for the CRA, was done by an agency in Etobicoke run by a wonderful man named George Durkach. So when I moved home to Canada, beginning work here in Canada in July of 1986, I worked out of the office of George and Diane Durkach, who were then in Etobicoke. We lived in Erin Mills, Mississauga, when we settled back in Canada, and so it was like a 15-20-minute ride under normal traffic conditions. Now in Toronto, there is no such thing as normal traffic conditions. And I would commute, of course, from Mississauga into Toronto to be at the office there. During that year, I processed papers for one of the gals who worked with us in Manila, Elizabeth, that she could come to Canada to help us in the office there. The Philippine office was moving to Hong Kong, and they only had so many visas for different staff people to actually live and work in Hong Kong. And this young lady was an incredible typist, perfectionist in English editing, and just as sharp as they come. And so I put through the paperwork. It took months of paperwork in order to bring a worker from overseas into Canada. But that happened during that year. And during that first year that I was there with George, actually totally was a year and a half with George Durkach, I hired Wally and Bruce, two young men who were excellent development guys, good speakers, good interpersonal relationship people, to do development work across Canada from our office based in Toronto. Well, as we grew and as the response to the message of the persecuted church began to expand in Canada, George Durkach called me in one day and said, "Paul, you guys are just growing too fast and too big. There's no way I can accommodate you anymore in my office. I appreciate all that I've been able to do for Open Doors. I'm very committed to the ministry, but you really need to now get your own office." We were able to locate one on the top floor of what then was the World Vision building in Mississauga. World Vision in the middle 80s had built a new building, and the third floor was more than space than what they needed. And so they leased it out to different mission organizations temporarily, like a certain number of years, until the time when they realized they would probably need to have that third floor, which, of course, occurred in a few years later. But we were able to rent a space at World Vision office, and 1988 was the year we moved into the World Vision office. And it was an incredible time because we joined the staff there for devotions. And whenever I traveled, which in those days was often to the Soviet Union, as I've shared in previous videos, I would then share with the staff of World Vision as well as the other missions that were there in our devotional times together. It was really a great, great time for us, especially as we were just beginning in Canada to really get established. And this is a picture of the first staff. So you have Wally and Bruce, the two guys on the outside. Bruce is on the far left and Wally on the far right. In the middle was our newest staff member who joined us in January 1st, 1988, was Paul Johnson. He was a pastor in Acton, Ontario, which wasn't far from Mississauga, and he had been to Cuba. You remember in one of my earlier videos, I shared with you how Pastor Eusebio Perez came and made a presentation just extemporaneously at one of our Brother Andrew dinner meetings about how Christians in Cuba had tremendous needs and Canadians were the best placed locationally people to help them and to minister to them. Well, we began to have people go to Cuba, and it became so many that we needed someone to supervise that in terms of briefing and debriefing, and that's what Paul joined for. So Paul's in the middle of this picture, and he is the young man who joined us at that time, married with two little boys, and was a great addition to the team. Later became the director after my time as director of Open Doors Canada. On his right is, in the red jacket, is Elizabeth, who came from the Philippines, and she worked with us for a number of years and was a tremendous help. She was later married and moved up to Midland in Ontario, and has a daughter and now grandchildren, and is enjoying life in Canada. On the other side of Paul Johnson is Dolores. Dolores was the last of this early team to join us, and she came in as receptionist and helping us with many other general things that we needed help with. So this is the team that began the work of Open Doors Canada. Great bunch. We often had fun doing different things, and in this picture we're all working on the mailing. Remember, in the 1980s, this before email and electronic media, and so mail was hugely important. We sent out a newsletter regularly, and then a monthly project letter about what kind of things were happening around the world that Open Doors was doing and which we needed financial help. And the ministry began to grow. The next person who joined our team was Jay Banerjee. And very shortly after Jay joined us, he married his sweetheart, Molly, who's pictured here beside him. Jay and Molly were a great addition to the team. Jay would do pastoral calls and pray with pastors for their needs. And I would get pastors phoning me saying, "Thank you so much for this young man who has so much wisdom for his age. And he is such an encouragement when he comes to visit us." Well, Jay also helped us with what were one of the main fundraising tools of the day, and those were dinner meetings. Jay had lots of contacts. And every year, the dinner meetings, which he organized, got bigger and bigger, until we actually did the one that I still believe to this day was the largest dinner meeting ever done by anyone in Open Doors, an actual dinner meeting. I was at dinner meetings in the United States, which were very common with Open Doors there. But the largest one I was at had 960 people. Brother Andrew was the speaker, which is what attracted so many. But in 1991, just as the Soviet Union was collapsing, we were able to have a dinner meeting in Toronto with 1,000 people in attendance. And they paid in advance for their meal. That way, if they didn't show up, we weren't stuck with the cost of the meal. And 1,000 people paid. In those days, I believe the meal cost was $25 a plate. And they came because we had 4 members from the persecuted church at the head table. Jay Banerjee and Molly were the hosts and hostess. He was the MC of the meeting. I took a back seat by this time, which was wonderful to have a team of people that could do all of this, and I could just sit back and enjoy it. But here were the four people that we had from around the world. For the first time, four members of the persecuted church. First of all, you've already heard me share with you about Sasha Ogorodnikov, or Alexander Ogorodnikov from the Soviet Union, one of the best-known Christian dissidents who's still ministering there to this day. There are a couple of videos about Sasha in this series, if you look back in the earlier numbers of this video series. Very fascinating young man. And he came and shared. Beside him, pictured on his right in this photo, is Stephen Wang. Stephen was from China, a very close friend of Pastor Wang Mingdao, who I've talked about previously. And he wrote the book on the biography of Pastor Wang Mingdao. Stephen lived till the day he passed away from cancer. He lived in Scarborough, in the east side of Toronto. And he and I hit it off well, and I used to love visiting with him, especially when he knew that he was in his last days. He was just such a wonderful person to be with. In addition to those two brothers, we had two more from two other countries. On the left is Nicanor Tamang. Nicanor is from Nepal, and the reason he was there was that he had been imprisoned in Nepal for proselytizing, a dominantly Hindu country where at that time it was illegal to proselytize, to lead other people to faith in Jesus. He only shared his faith openly. He was not really guilty of doing anything special to proselytize, but he spent time in prison. But his story was so fascinating because he led people to faith in Jesus inside the prison. One of those early Christians of that era whose story is so amazing about how hungry prisoners were to hear about Jesus in the jails of Nepal. And that's what he shared about when he came to this meeting. He is still living and working today in northern India, has a wonderful ministry there, dominantly to Nepali people who live in northern India. And he has long arms that extend back into Nepal, his home country of ministry. And then on the right is Eusebio Perez, who I've already shared with you about several times. Eusebio, a wonderful pastor from Cuba, was in prison when Brother Andrew visited Cuba. And later, Andrew sent two lovely ladies from France to minister to believers in Cuba. And Eusebio was the pastor they spent most of their time with, and whom they brought some wonderful materials, including copies of the Bible in Spanish for his people. Eusebio was a big encouragement all his ministry years to Open Doors, and we are so appreciative of him. And he and his wife now live in Toronto area at the time of this dinner meeting as well. And they came to share about what God is doing in Cuba and how we can help our brothers and sisters there. Well, that was an incredible dinner meeting. 1,000 people at the Royal York Hotel, the big hotel in downtown Toronto at the time. And that was thanks to the good work of Jay Banerjee, who today is a real estate, not just a real estate agent, he's a broker who works in Eastern Toronto and has a lot of connections with Christian leaders and with politicians as well. He and Molly is a TV I call her a TV star, and they are still extremely good friends of the ministry. During the later part of my time as director, Brother Andrew would come and visit us as often as he could. He loved Canada, because there are many Dutch people here, of course, as well, that we would introduce him to, including one of our board members, Jerry DeWall, is pictured here. This was a get-together of board members, some of the board members, staff and spouses, with Brother Andrew, who's holding in his arms Elizabeth's little girl at this point. It was a wonderful time that we had together as a staff. I enjoyed those years so much. In 1991, at the end of 1991, when I finished my 5 years that I agreed to do as Canadian director, Open Doors International asked me to become a minister at large, which was an international speaker, essentially, giving me time also to write. And Paul Johnson became the next director for Open Doors Canada. Paul had a real knack for development. He built this little prison cell, a kind of a simulation cell that we would have at mission conferences all the time. And he thoroughly enjoyed it when it was the kids who would come and learn the stories of the persecuted church from him as he sat in that jail cell. He was the director for 25 years, and he took Open Doors Canada to a much higher level than I was able to in my first 5 years. And late in 2016, he passed away on a motorcycle accident, and Gary Stagg became the third director for Open Doors Canada, and is currently so, and doing an incredibly great job. Gary has taken the ministry to a third level, and it's been exciting to see how things have developed in this country. We are thankful to God for people who are committed to ministry and to mission. And these are the kind of people that I was able to work with in my years here in Canada. And I thank God for every one of those years and every one of those people.